Welcome back. Well, trying to reunite an island that has been divided for more than 30 years is no easy task. In 2004, the Turkish and Greek communities held a referendum on Cyprus's future. The idea was to have a loose confederation, but it was the Greek Cypriots who rejected the plan. After Turkey invaded, 30,000 Turkish troops remained in the north. They say they are defending the Turkish community, but the Greek Cypriots view them as invaders. Greece and Turkey have been at loggerheads over Cyprus. It has brought them close to blows in the past. Relations have improved, but as Turkey seeks to join the European Union, the fear in Ankara is that Athens might veto the bid. The return of property to Greek and Turkish Cypriot refugees is also seen as necessary as part of any final settlement. Joining us again are our guests in Nicosia, Joseph, Professor of Political Science at the University of Cyprus. Also in Nicosia, Bekir Ezgin, Professor at Eastern Mediterranean University, and in Istanbul, Hugh Pope, Senior Analyst at the International Crisis Group. Mr. Joseph, Christofias said the key to the crisis is in Ankara. The Turks, on the other hand, are saying that the key is in Greece. Isn't this a reminder that this is a very complex situation?
Yeah, that is correct. We should not forget that Greece and Turkey are really very important actors and factors in this case. So both countries can play an important role, especially Turkey, of course, which is, has an army in the northern part of the island, and more or less important key decisions, one can argue, that are made in Ankara. Let me also stress, however, that with a solution based on a bizonal, bicommunal federation, it is possible that the criteria of both sides can be met, and that way we can reach a solution. Of course, there are details. There are a lot of issues that have to be negotiated. Some are very important. Some are considered very critical by both sides. And that's where I think it's important to stress that the emphasis should be placed. For example, on the Greek Cypriot side, it is very important to find a settlement that will leave no room for insecurity or uncertainty for the Greek Cypriots.
So security is a top priority.
Absolutely. And the presence of a Turkish army on the island is not a source of security for the Greek Cypriots, and indeed not for Cyprus as a whole.
Oh.
Also, the refugees, thousands of refugees who have been refugees since 1974 on both sides.
These are the most contentious issues, and we'll talk about them: the presence of the Turkish army and the security and the refugees and yielding territory back to the community. But let me go to Mr. Bekir Ezgin. Now there is talk about confidence-building measures. What are the Turkish Cypriots expecting for the moment from Mr. Christofias?
Well, the contradiction is that what security is for one side is unsecurity for the other. And that's the dilemma that needs to be solved by the parties. The Turkish Cypriots sees the Turkish army as their defenders. Greek Cypriots see them as occupiers, invaders. I mean, there must be find such a solution that security will not be only for one side, but for both of the communities. Otherwise, no solution can be reached.
Okay, Mr. Hugh Pope, the very idea that reunification could bolster the chances of the Turks to join the EU, does it seem a very plausible concept for the moment, knowing that the Turks are very much frustrated with the reluctance of the EU to accept them as permanent members of the EU?
Of course, Turkey has got a big interest in getting a settlement, and that's why Turkey backed the Annan Plan in 2004 in order to smooth its path to the EU and continue that golden circle and virtuous circle of reforms and rapprochement and convergence with the EU. And from a structural point of view, Cyprus has stood in Turkey's way for a very long time. But we believe, and we pointed out in a report we've just published on the Cyprus conflict, that everyone has a big stake in this. We're talking about security. Both sides of the island are now, theoretically anyway, members of the EU. So there is now a new common space that Christofias and Talat, the two leaders, have to build on. But we believe that also the Greek Cypriots have a big interest in getting to a solution. It is the only way to get the Turkish troops off the island, as agreed in the Annan Plan, and it's also the only way to get back a good slice of territory. It's the only way to get back compensation for those properties that have been occupied. And above all, we think that normalization with Turkey is the best economic plan for the Greek Cypriots. The tourism is weak now in Cyprus, and most of its region in the East Mediterranean, if you look at Egypt, Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, Israel, they're all beginning to turn to Turkey. And if the Greek Cypriots are left without a relationship with the biggest and most dynamic economy in the region, it's unlikely they'll be able to fully realize their hopes to become a regional financial center.
Okay, Mr. Joseph, you have the Turks on the other hand saying that how can we trust people who have overwhelmingly voted against the reunification?
Well, but they voted against a very specific plan, and from the very moment they had two options to vote either yes or no, they simply exercised their very democratic right to make a choice, and they voted no. But
so
that's not the end of the world.
The same question
yes,
in a different way. If the Greek Cypriots are asked this time to vote for the 2004 plan, would you expect the same results as in 2004?
No, I think we will have a very different result this time, but of course there have to be some adjustments to that plan, or any new suggestion, proposal, comprehensive plan for a settlement, has to take into account so many things, but the few critical, vital things I mentioned before have to meet the minimum expectations of the Greek Cypriots too. But I think we should look forward. More ideas and better ideas can come on the table. And also, let's keep in mind that the prospect of Turkey joining the European Union, and again, the European context, the powerful dynamics of European integration can play a very important role.
Let's put some of those ideas on the table and see how the other side will react to that. Mr. Becker, are the Turkish Cypriot community willing this time to yield territory back to the Greek Cypriots, or is it still a red line?
Well, the trouble is that for most of the Greek Cypriot politicians, Annan Plan is an anathema. They don't want the Annan Plan. They don't want something similar to the Annan Plan. And the problem is that Annan Plan did not fall from the skies. I mean, it has got a 40 or 50 years history, and it's built upon those negotiations. Therefore, whatever the result will be of these coming negotiations, the result will be something similar to the Annan Plan. And moreover, my view is that the stakes this time are higher. Turkish Cypriots have moved on since 2004, and most probably they'll ask more compared to what they were given in the Annan Plan. And this will create new problems.
Mr. Hugh, if for whatever reason moves for reunification fail, would this be a disaster for the international community and mainly for the Cypriots?
Yes, it would definitely be very bad news for everyone, because clearly the dynamics of the situation are moving towards partition. What we used to think about Cyprus, and in fact the island has been really effectively divided for nearly 40 years now, since 1963, is that the partition dynamic is going to simply increase, because what's happened is with the Greek Cypriot side inside Europe and Turkey outside it. The two sides are being pushed apart by the situation. And if we don't succeed this year, what we fear is that as Mr. Bekir Ezgin said, the Turkish Cypriots are not as hungry as they were for a solution, and there may just be, it may slip out of our grasp, and there are several things we should watch out for here. Is that even we seem in some ways to be heading back, if there is no solution, towards a situation that we had between Turkey and Greece in the 80s and 90s, which is, without having had actually conflict or combat, we had situations where there were near wars over Aegean islands or oil prospecting rights. And we've had a taste of that last year with some reports that there was going to be oil exploration off the seas of Cyprus, and immediately we got into the same pattern of threatening rhetoric from the two sides. And I think that although there is no sign that we're actually going to see fighting, there's going to be a lot of difficulties, and it's especially looked at from the European dimension, is that currently the European Union and NATO cannot formally speak to each other because of the conflict between Cyprus and Turkey, who are respectively members of those two organizations. We're seeing the EU-NATO efforts in Afghanistan hurt by this, and we're seeing obviously European consensus over Kosovo was very disrupted by the Greek Cypriot concerns about Kosovo. So all these things will become bigger problems in the future.
We have to leave it there, gentlemen. Mr. Hugh Pope in Istanbul, Mr. Joseph, and Mr. Bekir Ezgin in Nicosia. Thank you very much indeed for your contribution. Thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now.